Man up. Your boxing dream is a joke. My dad said after calling off my knee surgery so my golden sister could go. Can you imagine looking your own father in the eye, knowing he just deliberately chose a beach vacation for your sister over your career-ending surgery? And then, months later, having him ask you for help when his life falls apart? Because that's not some hypothetical nightmare. That's my reality. They say people will worship the ground you walk on right up until the moment you actually need their help. Then suddenly, everyone's got other priorities. I was 22, and after 14 years of grinding, I was finally turning pro. 14 years. Do you know what that means? It means getting punched in the face for free since I was 8. Tournaments every weekend. Busted knuckles. Skipping normal life, gym at dawn. My dad put me in boxing for discipline, and I took it and ran. By high school, promoters were watching. Senior year, I won Golden Gloves. Dominic Torres, a Detroit boxing legend, handed me the trophy himself. My coach had me training 6 days a week. Up at 4:45 a.m. By evening, my legs felt like concrete, but the wins kept coming. Pro managers were paying attention. 3 called me within 2 weeks. Everything I'd sacrificed, every early morning, every bruise, it was finally paying off. Then, on March 12th during sparring, my right knee just exploded. Not the good pop, the kind where your vision whites out. I was pivoting off my back leg, and the joint just gave out. I hit the canvas hard. Coach was there instantly. I tried to stand, collapsed immediately. It was sharp. Deep. Wrong. The sports medicine center gave me the initial diagnosis. Knee strain, rest ice. But 3 weeks later, the pain got worse. Walking became torture. Stairs were impossible. Training? Out of the question. On April 5th, Coach drove me to the orthopedic center. Full MRI mobility tests. Diagnosis: a complex meniscus tear with cartilage damage. Bones grinding together. The kind of injury that ends careers if you ignore it. Without surgery, permanent damage. Career over. No commission clearance. 5 years from now, I'd be limping with arthritis. With surgery and rehab, full recovery. 8 months of physical therapy, but I'd be back. The surgeon recommended June 14th, right after my amateur commitments wrapped up. Summer for recovery, back in the ring by spring. I called my dad to explain. I was reluctant, but I needed him. He was the first person I always looked for after leaving the ring. The surgery cost $14,000 out of pocket after insurance. Not cheap, but totally manageable for a senior accountant with 23 years in the field. He didn't hesitate. Of course, we'll handle this. Your future depends on it. I still have that text saved. April 7th, 6:47 p.m. Screenshot in a folder I started that very week. He even offered 3 weeks off work for my recovery. First week will be rough. I'll help with mobility, meds, appointments. Guest room downstairs. I'll work remotely. It was the first time since my mom died that my needs actually seemed to matter. I should have known better. I got home from training camp in early June, 2 weeks before scheduled surgery. The 3-hour drive from Detroit to Grand Rapids was brutal. Every pothole sent sharp, searing reminders through my knee that something was fundamentally wrong. The house looked the same. Same faded exterior, same creaky porch step. But something felt off the second I walked through the door. Avery. She's 19 now. Ever since Mom died when Avery was 5, Dad's been obsessed with keeping her happy. She looks exactly like Mom, same blonde hair, blue eyes, smile. Sometimes, I'd catch him just staring at her. The favoritism was always there. When I was a freshman, I needed new sparring gear. Dad made me prove the old ones were worn out, research the cheapest options. Took 3 days of comparison reviews before he'd approve $100. Avery wanted horseback riding lessons. He signed her up for the premium package. $200 per session. She went twice. Quit because horses smelled. Never a word about the wasted $400. When I won Golden Gloves, Dad texted, "Congrats." When Avery got a 3-line role in community theater, he took a week off for every performance, bought flowers each night, posted constantly on social media. The pattern was clear. I could excel at everything, get a pat on the head. Avery could do the bare minimum and get a parade. Turns out, that dynamic was about to cost me everything. That first night home, we ordered pizza. Neither Dad nor Avery could cook, so it was our default. We sat around the kitchen table, and I could tell something was up. Avery had that excited energy she always got when she wanted something. Finally, she couldn't contain it. So, I have amazing news. I got accepted to that study abroad program in London. First I'd heard about it. Dad immediately beamed at her like she'd won a Nobel Prize. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I knew you'd get in. I offered congratulations. Genuinely happy for her. That's great, Avery. What will you be studying? Oh, she waved her hand vaguely. Art, history, culture, British literature. Maybe they have a really flexible curriculum. But honestly, the best part is the experience. She pulled out her phone and started showing photos. It looked more like a travel brochure than anything academic. Students posing at tourist spots, shopping, drinking tea. The actual classrooms appeared in exactly one photo. The program starts in September, she continued, but here's the really exciting part. Me and the girls are planning this amazing trip before it starts. 3 weeks in Greece and Italy. Athens, Santorini, Rome, the Amalfi Coast. She pulled up a shared document showing their itinerary. Every single day was planned around photo opportunities. Not a single museum or cultural site that didn't come with aesthetic potential. I nodded along, trying to stay engaged despite the throbbing in my knee. Sounds like you have the whole thing planned out. When are you going? Avery's eyes flickered to Dad, then back to me. That nervous tell she always had. Well, that's the thing. The only time that works for everyone is mid-June through early July. And it makes sense, because we need time before the program starts. It clicked. Immediately. Mid-June through early July. The exact window for my surgery and recovery. The recovery Dad had promised to help me through. I sat my pizza down carefully. Avery, that's exactly when my surgery is scheduled. An uncomfortable silence dropped over the table. Dad suddenly became intensely focused on his food. Avery looked between us, her expression shifting from excited to defensive. I mean, it's not like you're having open heart surgery or something, she said with a shrug, like it was a minor inconvenience. Can't you just push it back? This is literally once in a lifetime for me. We've already started planning. The hotels are booked. The flights are going up if we wait. Avery, it's not that simple, I said, keeping my voice level. The timing was specifically planned around my fight schedule. If I delay, I might not get medical clearance for my debut. And the doctor was clear that waiting makes the damage worse. It's always about your boxing stuff, she interrupted, rolling her eyes. Some of us have interests besides punching people in the face. And I've been working really hard at school. I deserve something special. Too. That's when Dad finally spoke up. Not defending me. Not shutting her down. Just, Kane, is it possible to reschedule? Even a few weeks could work for Avery's plans. I stared at him, feeling the bottom drop out. Dad, we've discussed this multiple times. The surgeon's schedule is booked months in advance. If I reschedule now, it might be fall before he can fit me in. Then my entire pro debut is at risk. I continued, trying to appeal to logic. You said you'd take time off to help me recover. You can't be in 2 places at once. Dad shifted uncomfortably. His accounting brain was trying to calculate some way to make this work, some impossible equation. Well, that's something we might need to reconsider, he said carefully. Avery needs help preparing for this trip. Getting her situated in London afterward. It's a big step. International travel. Being in a foreign country alone. I felt like I'd stepped into an alternate reality. We were seriously discussing whether my necessary medical procedure should be postponed so Avery could take selfies in Greece. So, your vacation time is now going to her leisure trip instead of my medical recovery? Don't be so dramatic, Kane, Avery sighed, as if I was the unreasonable one. Your knee has been hurting for weeks, and you're still walking fine. It can wait. This trip can't. We've already put down deposits. Everyone's counting on their parents. She turned to Dad with those big, innocent eyes that always got her whatever she wanted. Dad, tell him he's being dramatic. No one's saying anything definite yet, Dad said weakly, finally looking at me. Let's all sleep on it. Discuss it tomorrow. But I could already see it in his face. The decision was made. Avery had won. My surgery was getting pushed aside for her vacation. Over the next few days, the little changes became impossible to ignore. Dad spent hours at the kitchen table with Avery, researching Greek islands on his laptop. Which ones had the best beaches? Should they book a yacht excursion or a sunset sailing tour? Meanwhile, my pre-surgery paperwork sat on the kitchen counter, gathering dust and coffee stains. The folder the surgeon's office had given me, with all the instructions for preoperative prep, it sat there untouched for 5 days straight while Dad and Avery planned her trip to paradise. On day 5, the hospital called to confirm the surgery deposit. Standard pre-op procedure. $3,500 to hold the slot. Remainder due the day of surgery. I forwarded the payment portal link to Dad via email. Added a note. They need deposit by Friday to hold June 14th date. His reply came 2 hours later. 4 words. I'm not paying it. Friday morning, my phone rang. The surgeon's office. Very apologetic. We haven't received the deposit. Unfortunately, we'll need to release your surgical date. Would you like to reschedule for September? I sat on my bed and stared at the wall for 20 minutes. That email from Dad. Screenshot folder. Timestamp preserved. I tried one more time on day 6. Caught Dad alone in his home office, reviewing spreadsheets of trip expenses on his computer. I was on crutches. He was comparing resort amenities. Dad, can we talk about the surgery situation? He didn't even look up from his screen. Kane, we've been over this. I've already committed to Avery's trip. The deposits are non-refundable. We'll figure out your surgery when I get back. That could be fall. My whole career. Your career will be fine, he interrupted, finally looking at me with an expression that made it clear the conversation was over. You've been fighting for years. One more delay won't kill you. That's when it really sank in. He didn't just prioritize Avery's wants over my needs. He genuinely didn't think my needs were urgent. To him, my career-threatening injury was an inconvenience that could wait. I called Coach the next morning, explained everything. He was furious. They can't do this to you, Kane. This is insane. Let me make some calls. Maybe the gym can help cover some costs. When I approached Dad that evening with this potential solution, he got cold. Fast. I've made my decision. I've already put down non-refundable deposits for Avery's trip. Your surgery will need to wait until September. I tried one more time. Showed him the email from the surgeon, emphasizing the risks of delay. The surgeon had written it clearly. Asterisk, continued weight-bearing on a compromised meniscus accelerates cartilage degradation. Each week of delay increases surgical complexity and extends recovery timeline. Strongly advise against postponement. Asterisk, Dad barely looked at it. Doctors always make things sound more urgent than they are. You can manage with rest until then. Avery deserves this opportunity. That word. Deserves. Like she'd earned a vacation by existing. While I apparently didn't deserve basic medical care. I went back to my room and did something I should have done earlier. I started a folder on my laptop, labeled it Documentation. I copied every text, every email, requested my MRI discs from the imaging center, filed a HIPAA release for my complete medical records, emailed the surgeon's office asking for written confirmation of delayed surgery risks. Not a rage strategy. A strategy. My options were limited. The surgeon was clear during our next call. This is completely irresponsible. Delaying significantly increases your risk of permanent damage. The longer we wait, the worse it gets. I asked about alternatives. Medical loans required credit history I didn't have. The clinic offered payment plans, but needed a $7,000 down payment I couldn't afford. Coach arranged a meeting with my new manager. The promoter's office was sympathetic but direct. Your fight slot is performance-based. If you can't pass medical clearance by fall, we'll have to reassess. The gym could contribute $2,000 through the fighter fund. Better than nothing. Still nowhere near enough. Meanwhile, Avery was living her best life. packing and repacking, taking selfies with her new clothes, asking my opinion on which sundress looked better. Each question felt like another slap in the face. Then one evening, she dropped another bomb. She held up two nearly identical linen shirts. Which one should I bring for Dad? For the trip, obviously. I just stared at her. Dad's coming with you? She looked at me like I was stupid. Yeah, for the first 10 days to help me get settled. Didn't he tell you? He hadn't. The same vacation time he'd originally promised for my recovery was now going to Greece with Avery. When I confronted Dad, he didn't even have the decency to look guilty. Avery's never traveled internationally. She needs guidance. You're an adult. You can handle things on your own. I packed my stuff that night, told Dad I was heading back to Detroit early. His response was a shrug and, if that's what you think is best, before going back to packing Avery's suitcase. Her parting wisdom? Try not to be so negative all the time. Your attitude is probably making your knee worse. The drive back was brutal. Every bump sent pain through my knee, but it was nothing compared to the cold clarity settling in my chest. Back in Detroit, things went from bad to worse. Fast. My gym brother, Mason, let me crash at his apartment near the gym. Good guy. He rearranged furniture to make the place accessible, drove me to appointments, helped when the pain got too intense to sleep. The sports medicine team put me on a modified program. Light stretching, minimal movement drills, nothing intense. But my knee was already too far gone. The doctor had noted weight-bearing restrictions in my chart. I wasn't supposed to be doing any lateral movement at all. Risk of further cartilage damage was documented on page 3. During what should have been an easy footwork session, something popped again. Worse this time. I went down on the gym floor. The pain was so bad, I thought I might pass out. Literally saw stars. My vision went dark around the edges. Coach was beside me instantly, his face grim. We need emergency services. Now. The ambulance ride was a blur. Paramedics asking questions I could barely answer through the pain. Vitals being checked. And 4 started. Someone saying something about potential nerve damage. The ER doctor's diagnosis was brutal. The meniscus tear had worsened significantly, with additional ligament damage. But worse than that, the cartilage damage had progressed. What should have been a straightforward arthroscopic procedure was now looking at possible reconstructive surgery. When he learned a recommended surgery had been canceled for non-medical reasons, his professional mask slipped. This should never have happened. This is basically medical negligence on whoever made this call. You're looking at a much more extensive procedure now, with longer recovery and potentially permanent limitation. Who's responsible for this decision? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because the answer was my own father. And saying that out loud would make it too real. The doctor waited for a response, then shook his head and made a note on my chart. They admitted me overnight for observation. Pumped me full of pain meds that made everything fuzzy, but didn't really stop the pain, just made it distant. Like it was happening to someone else. I texted Dad from the hospital bed around 9 p.m. Knee completely gave out during training. In ER. Damage, much worse. Surgery now more complicated and expensive. May have permanent damage. His response came 6 hours later. 3 a.m. my time. He was probably somewhere in Athens, checking his phone between activities. Sorry to hear that. Try to rest. Avery and I leave tomorrow morning. We'll have limited cell service for a few days. That was it. No asking which hospital. No asking if I needed anything. No concern about permanent damage. Just sorry to hear that. Like I told him my car got scratched. That text. Screenshot folder. The next day brought the final blow. Coach called me into his office with the gym owner. He didn't waste time. With your current prognosis, we have concerns about your ability to pass commission medical. We need to discuss your fight card slot. Message received. No clearance, no fight date. Without surgery, I couldn't compete. Without competition, I couldn't build the record needed to keep momentum. I left on crutches, more defeated than I'd ever felt. That night, lying in Mason's spare bedroom, staring at the ceiling, something in me just turned off. Done being passive. Done waiting for my family to do the right thing. Done being the responsible one who gets screwed. Time to take control. What I did. Mason found me the next morning, still in bed staring at the ceiling. This can't continue. We need to find another way. What way? I asked, my voice raw. I can't afford surgery. Can't compete without it. Can't build a career if I don't compete. Then we change the game, Mason said. You're not alone. The gym community has resources. Let's find them. He was right. I'd been so focused on Dad's betrayal that I'd basically given up. Stopped looking for solutions. Just wallowed. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked every channel I could find. A local clinic got me direct access to insurance, bypassing Dad entirely. The State Boxing Commission outlined emergency grants, but I was waitlisted behind 12 other applicants. Funding wouldn't come through until September at the earliest. I applied for a medical loan through 2 different lenders. Both denied. No credit history. No cosigner. No collateral. Dead ends everywhere. Coach secured me housing through the gym's community program. Mason rallied fighters to launch a crowdfunding campaign that gained traction, but still wouldn't cover the full amount in time. Coach had been calling in favors since the day I got hurt. 3 weeks of phone calls, dead ends, maybes that turned into numbers. Then he finally got through to someone who said yes. My phone rang from an unknown number. Dominic Torres. The same guy who'd handed me my Golden Gloves trophy 4 years ago. He'd been funding equipment for the gym's youth program for years, sponsoring kids who couldn't afford gear. A real one. Coach has been calling me for weeks, he said. Finally got the full picture. I'd like to meet. We met at a cafe near the gym that afternoon. Dominic was exactly what you'd expect from a former elite fighter turned businessman. Still in great shape. Well-dressed. Guarded. He ordered coffee, then sat back. I need to see everything before I commit to anything. MRI, surgeon's estimate, commission clearance timeline. Your amateur record. Send it to my office. Board meets every other Thursday. If they approve, payment goes direct to the surgical center. Usually takes 2 to 3 weeks from submission. What's the structure? I asked, bracing myself. Advance against future purses. You earn, you pay back a percentage over time. Career ends before repayment? It converts to a grant. All documented. I submitted my records that afternoon. Waited 9 days. The board approved the following Thursday. Surgery scheduled for the next week. I made one last attempt to reach Dad. Not for money. Just to let him know I'd figured it out without him. Found a way to get surgery, without your help. Scheduled for next week. His response was classic. Glad you worked something out. Avery and I are extending our stay another week. Having a wonderful time. Hope surgery goes well. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just info about their extended vacation. Perfect. That text was all I needed to confirm what came next. After that exchange, I blocked both Dad and Avery's numbers. Surgery day arrived. Mason drove me to the hospital. The surgeon greeted me with professional warmth. You've been through quite an ordeal to get here, but you made it. We're going to do everything we can to get you back in the ring. The procedure took nearly 5 hours. The damage was extensive. When I woke up, Mason was in a chair beside my bed, scrolling his phone. He looked up when I stirred. Welcome back, champ. How you feeling? Like someone took a power drill to my leg. Sounds about right. The surgeon came by during rounds the next morning, chart in hand. We got everything cleaned up. Bad news is recovery is closer to 13 months than 8. But with proper rehab, I'm optimistic about your long-term prognosis. That first week was rough. Pain meds, physical therapy evaluations, awkward adjustments to life with an immobilized leg. Learning how to shower with a plastic bag over my knee. Learning how to sleep without rolling onto my bad side. But I had support. Coach checked in daily. Mason made sure I had everything I needed. The gym guys' rotated visits brought food, movies, conversation that wasn't about my family or my injury. Just normal stuff. Then, on July 15th, 3 days post-op, Coach stopped by with food and a weird look on his face. Have you heard from your father? There's been major travel disruptions in Europe. Airline strikes. Greece is particularly affected. I hadn't been following the news during recovery. A quick search confirmed it. Air travel across Europe basically shut down. Multiple carriers, airport workers striking. Athens airport chaos. Curiosity got me. I temporarily unblocked Avery to check her social media. Wanted to see if the universe was doing its thing. What I found? A mess. Her first post, July 15th, stuck Athens airport 8+ hours. All flights canceled minimum 3 days. Every hotel within 50 miles fully booked. Sleeping on terminal floor tonight. This is insane. Over the next 12 days, they made every wrong move. Instead of waiting for the airline to rebook them for free, Dad panicked. He hired some premium travel concierge service that charged $2,800 upfront to expedite things. The concierge booked them on a route through Istanbul that got canceled twice. The company went dark after taking the money. Classic scam that preys on desperate travelers. Then came the emergency hotel. $450 per night during peak crisis. They stayed 9 nights because Dad kept thinking they'd leave tomorrow. He kept paying to feel in control. Every charge felt like progress, even when it wasn't. Classic sunk cost fallacy, playing out in real time. July 27th, Avery posted a rant, totting up their losses. Deleted it 6 hours later, but I got screenshots. Somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 gone. 2 mistakes: the scam concierge and Dad's refusal to just wait it out. 1 post survived from before everything collapsed. Caption: "Thanks, Daddy, for making dreams come true," with a flat lay of her passport and sunglasses. The comments on that one aged like milk in the sun. In between the disasters, I got the text I'd been waiting for. Unknown international number. July 16th, 3:17 a.m. my time. Kane, it's Dad using temporary phone. We're stuck in Athens. All flights canceled. Avery having complete breakdown. Need to get home ASAP. Can you check flights from Athens to Detroit next 3 to 4 days? Hotel internet barely working, please. I read it twice. The same man who'd refused to pay my surgery deposit was now asking me for help with his vacation crisis. The guy who'd told me to handle things on your own now needed me to handle things for him. I let it sit for 6 hours. Let him sweat. Then replied at 9 a.m. my time. Call your airline. Call your card issuer. This isn't my job. He tried calling. I declined. He tried again. Declined. Sent a follow-up text. Really need your help here. My response: you made it clear in June I needed to handle my own problems. You're capable of handling yours. That was it. Blocked the temporary number 2. Went back to recovery. Rehab became a daily checklist. Stretch. Ice. Elevate. Repeat. Tedious as anything, but it actually worked pretty fast. 3 weeks post-op, Dad reached out through email, since I'd blocked his numbers. Need to talk. Important. Call when you can. He called that evening. Kane, he began, sounding tired. How's recovery? Fine. What do you want? He let out a heavy sigh. The Greece situation created some complications. Credit utilization spiked to 94%. Missed 1 payment during the chaos, and my APR jumped to 29%. Tried a balance transfer, got denied. Interest is eating me alive. There it was. My rule-following accountant father had overextended himself badly. The emergency spending, the concierge fees, the panic bookings. His credit was taking hits, and the bills were piling up. Music to my ears. Sounds like a you problem, I said, voice flat as concrete. It is, he confirmed, and it's made me reconsider some recent decisions. I cut him off. Dad, I'm 3 weeks post-major surgery, rebuilding my life without the support I was promised. Your regrets aren't my concern. Long silence. That's fair. I just wanted you to know things aren't working out as expected. They rarely do, I said. Good luck with that. I ended the call. No feelings about it. 0. He was dealing with consequences. I was dealing with recovery. The difference was I'd found my footing through people who actually showed up. While he was slowly realizing Avery wasn't going to save him from anything. She couldn't even save herself. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The months passed, each day marked by progress. Rehab exercises, physical therapy, gradual improvements. The surgical scars faded from angry red to barely noticeable lines. "Your progress is remarkable," the surgeon said at my 4-month follow-up. "You're ahead of schedule." "I know," I answered. "Still notice it during lateral movement, but the constant pain is gone." The rehab program lined up with other wins. The commission approved my medical deferral request. My promoter officially held my slot for spring, confirmed in writing. A regional sports equipment company signed me to a small sponsorship deal. Training expenses covered. I'd also started working with Dominic's sports management company part-time, learning the business side of boxing, opening my eyes to opportunities I'd never considered before. Meanwhile, news from home kept trickling in. Avery's London program collapsed after 6 weeks. Failed 2 of her 3 courses. Academic probation. Lost her financial aid eligibility because her GPA dropped below the minimum threshold. "They expected me to actually do readings and write papers," she complained when she called. "It was supposed to be about experiencing culture. So unfair." That's literally what college is. Reading and writing. What did you think you were signing up for? Whatever. Dad's super mad since he paid for the whole semester up front. They only refunded 20%. And now my loans are coming due, but I can't re-enroll until I fix my GPA somewhere else for it. I almost smiled. Almost. Another expensive lesson. Dad was paying for another consequence, rolling downhill. Dad's situation had gotten worse. The Greece disaster had maxed out his credit cards. He'd taken an early withdrawal from his 401k to cover the emergency costs, which meant penalties and taxes he hadn't planned for. Then he had to sell his truck, the one he'd driven for 12 years. Got $8,000 for something worth twice that because he needed cash fast. I heard from a cousin that he'd also stopped contributing to his retirement entirely. Just treading water now, trying to keep the lights on. He was drowning in debt he'd created over 12 days of panic. And the kicker? The chargeback he'd filed on those concierge fees got denied. The company had disappeared, and his card issuer said he'd voluntarily paid a third party. He lost every dispute. Nearly $3,000 gone. I'd been keeping records of my own situation. Not for revenge. For clarity. See, when Dad refused my surgery deposit, something clicked. He'd promised to cover it. Made that promise in writing via email and text messages. Then he deliberately withdrew that support, causing me documented harm. I'd been consulting with a legal clinic. They helped me organize everything and draft something clear. Their advice was simple. Don't threaten. Don't extort. Just set expectations in writing and stick to them. Because documentation is power. As fall went on, Dad started reaching out more often. His situation had gotten even worse. The 401k withdrawal triggered tax complications. The credit card debt was crushing him. Avery had moved back home after London, showing zero awareness of financial constraints, still expecting Dad to fund her lifestyle. He wanted to rebuild our relationship. Translation: he needed something. When Thanksgiving approached, Dad actually called instead of texting. "Kane, I'd really like you to come home for Thanksgiving. It would mean a lot to have family together." "Maybe," I said, giving him nothing. "Please. I know I made mistakes, but you're my son. Family is important. Family is important." I let that sit for a second. Let it hang in the air between us. Where was that energy when he was refusing my surgery deposit? Where was family is important when I was lying in a hospital bed? But I decided to go. Not for reconciliation. For closure. On my terms. Thanksgiving Day, I drove home. My knee felt strong for the first time in months. Solid. Stable. The physical therapy had worked. I was stronger than before the injury, in some ways. More aware of my body. More disciplined about maintenance and prevention. The house looked the same from the outside, but I knew everything inside had crumbled. Dad answered the door, and he looked wrecked. Lines deeper around his eyes, hair significantly grayer, shoulders slumped. He'd lost maybe 15 pounds. The kind of weight loss that comes from stress and skipping meals. Kane, it's good to see you, he said, trying for warmth, but his voice just sounded hollow. Inside, nothing had changed except everything had changed. The furniture was the same, but the vibe was completely different. Defeated. Desperate. Avery was sprawled on the couch, scrolling her phone, barely acknowledging my arrival with a half-hearted, "Hey." She looked older than 19, like stress had finally found her, too. Dinner was pathetic. Store-bought turkey, pre-made sides, stuffing from a box. Dad clearly couldn't afford the usual spread. Just generic Thanksgiving food that tasted like surrender. Avery complained about everything. The turkey was dry. Why couldn't we have gone to a restaurant? This was pathetic. Dad just took it. Didn't even defend himself. Just looked exhausted, picking at his food. After dinner, Avery disappeared upstairs without helping clean up. Dad started clearing dishes with slow, robotic movements. We moved to the living room. This was it. Time for the conversation I'd been planning for months. "So," I said, settling into the armchair across from him. "Financial situation any better?" Dad shook his head, and I could see real despair in his eyes. "Not really. The credit card debt is killing me. Tax penalties from the 401k withdrawal, plus regular expenses, plus Avery's student loan payments started since she's no longer enrolled. I'm barely keeping my head above water. Some months, I'm not sure how I'm going to make it." "Rough," I said. Zero sympathy in my voice. "None." "I was actually hoping," he continued. And here it came, looking uncomfortable in a way that told me he knew what he was about to ask was insane. "Maybe you could help me out just temporarily. Just until I get back on my feet. I know you've been working with that sports management company. If you could contribute something toward household expenses, maybe $500 a month? Just for a few months." There it was. The real reason for the Thanksgiving invitation. The real reason he'd suddenly wanted to rebuild our relationship. He wanted money. From me. $500 a month, $6,000 a year, from the same son whose $14,000 surgery he'd refused. Who he'd abandoned in a hospital bed while taking photos in Greece. Who he'd told to handle things on your own. The audacity was almost impressive. Almost. But not surprising. Avery came downstairs halfway through Dad's ask, like she could sense someone saying the word expenses. Phone in hand, hoodie on, eyes already annoyed. "Why is it so quiet?" she said, then noticed my face, Dad's strained expression, the tension in the room. She stopped pretending. "Wait, are you seriously not helping?" Dad didn't answer. That was the answer. Avery's voice dropped into that fake calm tone people use right before they start bargaining. "Okay, listen. I need to handle something. My loan payment is due Monday. Dad can't cover it. If it hits collections, it's going to wreck my credit." She looked at me like I was an ATM that had learned boundaries and offended her personally. "Just float it," she said. "You're back on track. You have people. You can do this." I didn't even argue. "Call your loan servicer. Set up a payment plan. This isn't my problem." Her face shifted fast. Sweet to scared to mad, like a buffering wheel. "You're really doing this? It's Thanksgiving." "You did it first," I said. And that was all I gave her. She stood there processing. The easy solution was sitting right in front of her, and it was saying no. For maybe the first time in her life, being Avery wasn't enough. I turned back to Dad. I didn't say anything else. Just pulled out a manila folder from my jacket, slid it across the coffee table. Inside, printed screenshots of his "I'm not paying it" email. The surgeon's written warning about delayed surgery risks. The ER admission paperwork. His "sorry to hear that" text from Athens. $17,000 in documented additional costs that wouldn't have existed if he'd kept his word. Dad's face went from confused to pale as he flipped through the pages. "What is this?" "That's the paper trail," I said, voice flat. A legal clinic helped me put it together, organize everything clearly. I pulled out a single sheet from my jacket pocket. "This is a boundary agreement. Not legally binding, but it's my line in the sand. Any financial requests from you get ignored. If you push, I'll only respond by email. If you keep pushing, I disappear completely." You don't get to ask me for money. Ever. Dad stared at the paper, then at me, then back at the paper. You can't be serious. You're talking about cutting me off completely. I'm talking about protecting myself, I corrected. From people who've proven they'll sacrifice me the second it's convenient.
You made a choice last June, Dad.
You chose Avery's vacation over my medical need, her comfort over my future, her photos over my career. Now you're going to live with that choice. His hands were shaking as he held the paper. Sign it, and we stay civil. We can show up to the same family events without drama. We can exchange basic updates, but don't expect anything from me financially or emotionally. Don't sign, and I walk out that door, and you never hear from me again. Your call. Kane, I'm your father. You stopped being my father, I interrupted. When you abandoned me in a hospital bed while you traveled with Avery. When you chose her wants over my needs. You're not my father anymore. You're just some guy who shares my DNA. This is manipulation. No, I said calmly. Manipulation is what you did when you promised to support my surgery and then took that money to Greece. I'm just setting boundaries.
Clear ones.
In writing. So there's no confusion. The silence stretched out. I could see him calculating, trying to find some way out, some angle. But there wasn't one. He'd backed himself into this corner through his own choices. Finally, he reached for the pen. You've changed, he said quietly as he signed. Yeah, I agreed. I stopped being naive about who actually has my back. He signed it. Symbolic surrender. I took it, folded it carefully, put it in my jacket. One more thing, I said. Avery's debt. Her problems. Her choices. Those are yours to deal with.
Not mine.
Never mine. I stood up. Every time you look at her, remember what she cost you. Not just money. Your son. I walked toward the door. Dad called after me. Can't wait. I turned back. We just did talk. You made your choice. Live with it. I'm doing great. Surgery was successful. Pro debut is back on track. My life is coming together despite everything you did. I paused at the door. The only thing you killed was our relationship. Hope those photos were worth it. I walked out, got in my car, and drove away. Behind me, Dad, standing in the doorway, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Avery's face in the upstairs window, confused. I didn't look back. The drive to Detroit felt different. Lighter. Like I'd finally set down something I'd been carrying for years. He picked her trip over my knee. I picked my life over him. This whole journey, it changed me. It showed me who my real family is. But it also showed me the true cost of setting boundaries, even when you know it's the right thing to do. So I have to ask, what would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever had to choose yourself over toxic family? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.